Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive with us. Today we're looking at something a little different.
Yeah, kind of off the beaten path.
Poetry, but not the kind you might expect.
No sonnets and haikus here.
More like poetry as a weapon, a tool for exposing the cotton in our lives.
Ooh, that's a good one.
So to get us started today, we have this article called Die größte Schneebedruckerei, Wahrheit durch Poesie aufdecken.
And they use a pretty interesting metaphor to make their point.
Okay, so let's say you've booked a trip to like a winter wonderland.
You know all those snowy mountains and that crisp air?
But then you get there and it's all fake.
And then instead of snow, it's like a bait and switch, you know? You think you're getting the real deal.
Like a five-star restaurant that serves you instant ramen.
Exactly. And this actually happened in a place called Chengdu's Snow Village.
They tried to pass off cotton as snow.
Pretty wild, right? But the article uses this to show how much fake stuff we deal with every day.
Yeah, it's kind of funny, but also a little unsettling when you think about it.
Right. Like, how often are we being sold this cotton instead of something real?
Fake news, empty promises, all that jazz.
And that's where the poetry comes in.
Okay, I'm listening.
The article says that real poetry, like authentic poetry, can be a way to fight back against all this fakeness.
So it's not just about pretty words.
No, it's about using words to cut through all the BS and get to the truth, even if it's uncomfortable.
So it's like less about rhymes and more about shaking things up, kind of like...
Like a verbal slap in the face?
Yeah, exactly.
The article actually compares it to a poetry slam.
Oh yeah, like waking up the audience and forcing them to see things they'd rather ignore.
Right.
So we're not exactly talking about happy-go-lucky poems here.
Not exactly rainbows and butterflies.
So what kind of truths are you talking about? What are some examples?
Well, the article mentions some pretty viggy stuff, like the thoughts of a bullying victim.
Oh, wow.
Or a letter from a refugee to their lost home. Or even the pain of a child who's being neglected.
Those are some pretty intense topics. I can see how exploring those through poetry could really hit people hard.
That's the point, right? To make people feel something real.
Yeah, and to maybe even make them a little uncomfortable.
Sometimes being uncomfortable is what it takes to make a change.
That's true. The article is saying that good poetry, when it's done well, can make people confront these tough realities head on.
Right, like holding up a mirror.
But instead of your reflection, you see
your soul.
all those deep down fears and anxieties.
It's about taking off the mask, getting rid of the cotton, and showing the raw truth underneath.
Okay, this is making a lot of sense now. But how do you actually write this kind of truth-telling poetry? Is there like a formula?
Well, the article talks about two main things: being honest with your emotions and being vulnerable.
Vulnerability.
Yeah, they're saying that poets should dig deep into their own lives and share their truths, even the painful ones.
So it's not just about finding these big stories out in the world.
It's about looking inside yourself, too.
Being willing to show your own cotton. And that takes a lot of guts.
Definitely. And the article says that for a lot of people, the hardest part about writing powerful poetry is that fear of being vulnerable, of showing those raw parts of themselves.
That's understandable. We're so used to trying to be perfect all the time.
Right. We put on this polished version of ourselves for everyone else.
So dropping that and being truly vulnerable takes courage.
Big time. But the article argues that this vulnerability is what makes poetry so powerful. It lets it connect with people on a deeper level because it resonates with their own experiences.
So in a way, when we're vulnerable in our writing, we're giving other people permission to do the same.
Right, to face their own cotton and embrace the snow.
I love that. But let's be honest here. Raw emotion doesn't automatically equal good poetry.
You need skill, too. You need to know how to weave those emotions into something that people will want to read.
It's like the difference between throwing a snowball and making an ice sculpture.
That's a great way to put it.
You need that artistry to really make an impact.
And the article acknowledges this too. They actually recommend a guide called Poetry Master to help people learn how to do this.
Oh, so there is a sort of secret sauce after all. What does this Poetry Master focus on?
It seems to be more about learning how to use language to really capture an audience's attention.
Not just rhymes and metaphors.
It's about using vivid imagery, strong metaphors, and creating a rhythm with your words that keeps people engaged.
So it's about taking those raw emotions and shaping them into something that's powerful, but also really draws the reader in.
Right, like taking a block of ice and turning it into something beautiful and meaningful.
It's like that saying, poetry is the music of the soul.
I love that.
It's about using words to create this whole symphony of emotions and ideas that the reader can really feel.
And Poetry Master seems to be about teaching you how to compose that symphony, how to arrange your words and emotions to make a powerful impact.
This guide is starting to sound pretty interesting. But let's be real for a second. It's easy to read about these techniques.
Right, but actually putting them into practice, putting yourself out there with all your vulnerabilities.
That's a whole different ballgame.
Totally. The article even talks about how scary it can be to share your work, especially when it's so personal.
That fear of judgment, of exposing yourself to the world.
Yeah, it's not easy.
Does the Poetry Master offer any advice for dealing with that?
It talks a lot about finding your audience, connecting with people who will understand and appreciate your unique voice.
So instead of trying to please everyone,
You focus on the people who will truly get it.
and it encourages you to think of your poetry as a gift you're giving to the world, not something that has to be perfect.
That's a good point.
It's about shifting your mindset from seeking validation to just sharing your truth.
Which brings us back to the whole idea of cotton and snow, right? It's about being real even when it's scary.
And trusting that your truth will resonate with someone out there.
Exactly. And the more people who share their snow, the more we create a culture that values authenticity over fakeness.
It's like a chain reaction.
A snowball effect.
One person's courage to be real inspires others, and pretty soon we have a whole blizzard of truth.
I love that image. It really shows how powerful individual actions can be.
Even small acts of authenticity can have a ripple effect.
Totally. It makes you think about the cotton in your own life and how you can use your voice to expose it and replace it with something real.
That's a powerful question to think about. But before we get too deep into our own cotton situations, let's take a quick break. We'll be back in a moment to dive into the Poetry Master and see how you can use language to create your own blizzard of truth. All right, so we're back and ready to dig into this Poetry Master Guide. It's supposed to be like a roadmap for taking those raw emotions and turning them into really powerful poetry.
Yeah, like a blueprint for building truth bombs.
But to be honest, the whole idea of having a guidebook for something as personal as poetry feels a little weird, don't you think?
I get what you mean. Poetry is about expressing your own unique voice and perspective.
Right, so how can a guidebook tell you how to do that?
Well, think of it this way. Even the best artists can benefit from learning new techniques.
Okay, so it's not about stifling your creativity.
It's more about giving you tools to express it better, like a chef learning how to use different knives.
Okay, I see what you mean. So what kind of knife skills does this Poetry Master offer?
From what the article says, it's not about writing specific types of poems like sonnets or haikus.
So it's not like a poetry cookbook.
Right. It's more about understanding what makes poetry truly captivating.
So like the elements that keep people hooked.
Exactly. Stuff like using vivid imagery, crafting metaphors that resonate, and building a rhythm with your words.
So it's about taking those raw emotional truths and shaping them into something that's both powerful and engaging to read.
Yes. Making it an experience for the reader, not just words on a page.
Like the difference between throwing a snowball and sculpting a detailed ice sculpture, right?
Exactly. It's about sculpting your words to create something truly impactful.
It's like that quote, poetry is the music of the soul.
Beautiful.
It's about using language to create a symphony of emotions and ideas.
And the Poetry Master seems to be all about giving you the tools to compose that symphony, to arrange your words and emotions in a way that really hits home.
This guide is starting to grow on me, but let's be real here for a second. Reading about these techniques is one thing.
Right. Putting them into practice, sharing your work, that's a whole other thing.
Especially when it's so personal and vulnerable.
Yeah, the article talks about that too, that fear of judgment.
And the vulnerability of putting yourself out there.
Exactly. It's not easy.
Does the Poetry Master have any advice for getting over that hurdle?
It talks about the importance of finding your audience, people who will connect with your voice.
So find your tribe.
Right, the people who will appreciate what you have to say.
And it encourages you to see your poetry as a gift you're giving to the world.
Not something that has to be perfect.
That's a really good point. So it's about shifting your focus from seeking validation to just sharing your truth.
Which goes back to our whole theme of exposing the cotton and embracing the snow.
It's about being real, even when it's scary.
And trusting that the right people will find it.
Exactly. And the more people who are willing to share their snow, the more we create a culture that values authenticity over fakeness, right?
100%. It's like a ripple effect.
Each act of courage inspires another.
And pretty soon we have a blizzard of truth.
I love that. It shows that even small acts of authenticity can make a difference.
They really can. It all starts with being aware of the cotton in our own life.
Challenging.
And finding ways to express our own truths.
Whether it's through poetry or any other way we can find our voice.
Exactly. The Poetry Master just gives us some tools to do that more effectively.
Okay, so let's switch gears for a second. The article mentions that the Poetry Master is available in both English and German.
Interesting.
What do you think that says about the message of the book?
I think it shows that this desire for authenticity, for connecting with something real, it goes beyond language and culture.
Like we're all searching for the same thing.
We're all bombarded with cotton in different ways.
And we all crave that snow that feeds our souls.
Well said.
It's like we're all in this global snow globe being shaken up by forces outside our control,
Yeah,
but we each have the power to create our own little blizzards of truth.
I like that a lot.
And maybe, just maybe, all those little blizzards will eventually come together and create a real force for change.
That's a powerful thought. And it brings us back to the main question we've been exploring.
What cotton do we see in our own lives?
And how can we use our voices, our creativity, to expose it and replace it with something real?
That's a question worth thinking about. And while we're all pondering our personal cotton situations, let's hear a word from our sponsors.
And we're back. We were just talking about the power of each of us, to create our own little blizzards of truth.
Right, by exposing the cotton and embracing the snow.
It's a cool concept, but how do we actually do that? Where do we even start? Well, the article Die größte Schneebetrugerei Wahrheit durch Puzzle aufdecken has a few ideas.
Hit me with them. What's the first step to becoming a truth warrior?
First, you gotta be aware. Really pay attention to the cotton you see every day.
The fakeness, the facades, all that.
Exactly. It's like you're putting on special glasses that let you see the cotton everywhere.
I like that. What kind of cotton should we be looking out for?
Oh, it could be anything. The perfect lives people show on social media.
Oh, yeah?
Empty promises from politicians.
Definitely.
All that marketing hype that tells you need things you don't.
So basically, be a critical thinker. Question everything.
Exactly. Don't just accept what you're told. Look deeper.
Sounds exhausting, though, like constantly being on cotton patrol.
It can be, but it's also freeing. Once you start seeing the cotton for what it is, you're not just blindly following along anymore.
You're in control.
Right. You get to choose what you let into your life.
Okay, I've seen the upside here. But just recognizing the cotton isn't enough, right? What's the next step?
You got to find your own voice and use it to fight back. Expose the cotton and show people the snow.
And that doesn't just mean writing poetry, right?
Nope. It could be through art, music, writing, even just having real conversations with people.
So find your own way to express your truth.
Exactly. Whether it's painting, singing, writing a blog, whatever speaks to you.
This reminds me of that scene in The Wizard of Oz when Dorothy pulls back the curtain and reveals the wizard is a fake.
Oh, yeah.
It's about having the courage to see through the illusions and speak the truth even when it's hard.
Exactly. We all have the power to expose the cotton in our own lives.
And we don't have to do it alone.
Right. Find your people, the ones who get it.
Your truth-seeking squad.
Exactly. It's easier to fight the good fight when you have people by your side.
So to sum it all up, what's your advice for anyone listening who wants to embrace the snow and create their own blizzard of truth?
Start small. You don't have to do something huge to make a difference. Just start noticing the cotton around you. Challenge it when you can, and find ways to express your truth, even if it's imperfect.
That's great advice. And remember, the world needs your voice, your perspective. Don't be afraid to be bold, be vulnerable, be real.
And if you need a little help along the way, check out that Poetry Master guide we talked about.
Available in English and German.
It might give you the tools you need to express your truth in powerful ways.
Well, that brings us to the end of our deep dive. Thanks for joining us on this journey into truth, poetry, and being authentic.
It's been a pleasure.
Keep questioning, keep creating, and keep embracing the snow.
And as Stefan, the author of our source article, would say, be creative.
That's all for this week's deep dive. Thanks for listening.